Sarah, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I'll just quickly introduce you as someone who helps fast-growing engineering teams scale faster and has been head of engineering at Flurry and director of engineering at Yahoo. So with that, all yours. Welcome to
Hi.
your talk.
Yes, thank you. So I am going to share my screen, right? Because that's where it's all at, something to show, not just looking at each other. And I'm going to dive right into it. Um, so my intent is to talk about developer productivity because that is something that's super interesting to me. And it's really, I think, it's the crux of a lot of activities in any company, how effectively developers produce and how do we perceive that and how they actually relate to that. Um, so traditional approaches to developer productivity or developer performance might seem like surveillance to technical teams, and they typically create resistance, which is counter what they meant to be. They're supposed to provide insights. So I think there's a better approach to that. And so my presentation is about different way to engage developers while measuring their productivity. So so I think the point here, the last couple of years, maybe this is continuous speeding up of everything. The landscape has accelerated. And so what is happening is that growth at all cost has been replaced with um, demand for efficiency. So it's return on investment is expected on every dollar spent, and our technical investments need justification, different justification. Tools like AI tools like Copilot, Claude, Cursor, definitely changing the productivity expectations. The code that took weeks to write now takes days, and it brings up the conversation about what is really um, commodity. So coding becomes commodity essentially. Remote work is no longer an experiment. It is it's a new reality, and visual cues that managers had to understand who's working, who's not working, who's at their desk and not no longer are available. And most importantly, talent is mobile. So talent is not necessarily looking just for compensation. They're looking for environment that is productive, conducive to their well-being and their way of expressing their skill. Um, so the market has responded to these challenges by creating a set of platforms or tools that help measure developer productivity. So we have Jellyfish, Pluralsight, Haystack, many different ones. And those platforms do provide value. They provide visibility into bottlenecks. They identify where developers are waiting on dependencies, approvals, external factors. But it also the value of this visibility is really that shifts focus from performance to system optimization. Data-driven improvements move us beyond gut feelings, whether something works or not. They enable creating feedback loops that help teams experiment with process changes and actually measure the outcomes. Um, Tools also create alignment with business goals by connecting technical initiatives to business outcomes. And in the process, we have shared language between business and engineering teams, engineering leadership. And the challenge really ensuring that these capabilities serve developers rather than become tool for micromanagement. And the core problem, even with the best intention, metrics implementation often devolve into the term that I have is metrics theatrics. The appearance that measurement without the appearance of measurement without substance of improvement. And with that, we fall into a couple traps. One is surveillance trap, where metrics feel like they're monitoring activity rather than outcomes, which alienates developers, accelerates turnover, and focuses attention on the wrong things. Developers then optimize for measurement rather than what matters. Measurement void happens when we lack meaningful metrics that connect to actual business impact, and leadership becomes blind to what engineering is actually producing or creating. There's also a trap of misalignment when engineering efforts disconnected from actual business outcomes. So they're creating something that has no commercial value. And the statement that I want to make here is that might sound counterintuitive to many executives, is that key to making metrics meaningful requires shift in thinking. The metrics should serve developers first and executives second. And this shift, this is where the shift really is, creates an alignment that changes conversation from managing or controlling developers to amplifying their impact. So before I go into how this can be implemented, a bit of a view into what a what a vision of this looks like. So developers, if this is done right, developers proactively share their impact because they see value in it for themselves. They want to tell their story of their work and their accomplishments because it does advance their careers. So it's in their interest to be improving. Technical initiatives are clearly linked to business outcomes, and engineers understand how their work connects to company objectives and can articulate that connection. Teams also experience fewer obstacles to productivity because metrics highlight systemic bottlenecks that leadership can address. And finally, leadership is confident in engineering investment because they can see and understand the value being created. So this confidence then translates into better resource allocation, better alignment. Then, unnecessary to say, but the benefits are equally. This is beneficial equal to developers and the companies and the business themselves. So to achieve this vision, there are three core principles. Business value alignment is one that connects developers to their activities to the business impact. This means instrumenting code with business metrics and establishing feedback loops between technical work and business outcomes. This ensures engineers understand how their work creates value. Trust-based measurement ensures metrics serve developers first, leadership second. Data is used for system improvement, not performance evaluation. And there's a complete transparency in how metrics are collected, used, and interpreted. This changes how developers perceive measurement. And then developer-driven improvement recognizes diverse working styles and preferences. It acknowledges multiple valid approaches to achieving outcomes and empowers teams to choose their own path to shared objectives. This respects developer autonomy and expertise. And possibly worth stating that this really is about competitive advantage. The companies that get this right do outperform the ones that don't in talent acquisition, technical execution, and business outcomes. So now if we take a look at implementation of these principles, what does it look like? If we start with developer ownership and agency, The core insight is that the best metrics are the ones that developers choose for themselves, that they track themselves, metrics that help them improve, remove obstacles, and demonstrate their impact. If we take an example of tracking lead time for changes, which is a DevOps metric that measures how long it takes to deploy code from the time it's committed. It's one of the 4 core metrics the DORA framework tracks. And it's a lead time for changes. The lead time for changes measures the efficiency of CI/CD pipeline, essentially how quickly the work is delivered to the users. So when developers choose to track their lead time from commit to production, they gain visibility into their deployment pipeline efficiency, which helps them identify where their code gets stuck in review, testing, deployment. And they can use this information to advocate for process improvements. For instance, they can split work into smaller chunks, implement more automated testing, or adjust code review process that then doesn't suit them, that slow them down, essentially. When metrics serve these purposes for developers, they naturally also provide the value to business, to the organization. The shift is in viewing metrics as tools to developers use for their benefit rather than tools used to evaluate them. And when developers select and track these metrics themselves, a couple of things happens. They gain agency and problem-solving motivation. So metrics aren't imposed, they're used for diagnostic, and they help developers solve their own problems. For instance, if we take for instance, a developer who identifies that 30% of their time goes to resolving deployment issues, has concrete data to advocate for infrastructure improvements. Another benefit is they gain a career narrative. So self-track metrics provide evidence for growth conversations and promotion discussions. If developer can show how they reduced, let's say, mean time to recovery from 4 hours to 30 minutes, they gain a credible metrics of their own accomplishment. Then another piece of this framework is trust. Foundation of successful metrics program is trust. Means that clear communication about how data will be used, explicitly stating what will and won't happen with metrics data. For example, committing that individual metrics won't be used in performance reviews can completely transform how developers engage. Open metrics visibility gives everyone the same data. There are no hidden management dashboards. And when developers and leaders look at the same information, that's a shared understanding and possibly eliminate suspicion for different motivations. Developers control over insights sharing, also respects their preferences while still enabling necessary visibility. Some developers are comfortable sharing extensively while others prefer more privacy. So this accommodates where possible. And I think there's another piece here that's growth and learning focus. The metrics highlight the journey, not the destination. They tell a story of how developers are growing and what they're learning, not just what they shipped, which means there's an emphasis on improvement, not evaluation. And metrics focus on progress over time rather than fixed assessment of performance. Technical excellence recognition ensures that engineering quality, not just speed, is valued and visible. And this could possibly have metrics around code quality, architecture improvements, or reducing technical debt. obviously career development, connects metrics to professional growth paths, helping developers see how measurement supports their long-term goals. So a couple takeaways from this. Alignment with business goals benefits everyone. Connecting technical work to business outcomes creates clarity and purpose that serves both developers and the organization. Second, that metrics should empower, not monitor. They are tools that amplify developer impact rather than mechanism for surveillance. Best measurement starts with developer needs. When metrics solve problems for developers, they'll embrace them rather than resist them. And finally, payoff is strategic advantage in talent, execution, and outcomes. Companies that get this right do outperform their competitors on multiple dimensions. And I think that's my summary with takeaways.
Cool. We can do some Q&A then.
Thank
And if you
you.
don't mind, you can stop sharing your screen. We can.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay. I do have a first question. So I'm wondering how seems like this is one more task for everyone from business to developers to decide, okay, what metrics are we going to choose? And I'm curious if agentic AI can be involved, say both from the business angle, from the engineer's angle, and that too from different engineers' angles, to help at least offer some metrics to choose from, or like how was it done in companies
I
generally?
think I think I think generally there's probably given set of metrics. Some of that would come with framework for Dora and Space and DevX. There's set of metrics that come with it. And I think if even if you let developer choose, they'll still choose from what's given, what's pretty much standard stuff. The only difference is really they choose as opposed to they being imposed. I think
So
in the
sounds
end,
like you're
you
saying
measure
at the end
this.
of the day, it's pretty standard, and they're just choosing from. Then why is there a problem?
It's not a problem. I think in many ways, when a developer metrics platform is brought in, there's a mandate to use it, and it's
Okay,
coming from above because somebody invested in this, and they want to see this being used. And so I think it just be put on everybody saying, gotta use this without concern or consideration that people have different styles, different ideas how things are. Not everybody performs the same way, and so it comes
understood.
from the above. People are just like, ugh. But if that same thing is, can we implement bottoms up? Then it becomes our own. We chose how to do this, right? So it's the
Sounds good.
same platform, same metrics, same everything. It's just we choose how to go about it. So it matters to us, and we know we're using for our own stuff rather than being brought above, from above.
Got it. Got it. Bulky, over to you.
Yeah, this topic is so relevant, Bisera. Thank you for bringing it up. But what I see is there's a collusion between what the leadership, i.e., execs want, the founders, they're fixated on velocity, right? And the engineers are fixated on the tactical aspects of it. My job as a leader is how do I connect the dots and give what the execs want, the velocity, or at least the metrics of velocity, versus the nitty-gritty details that engineers care about, like what has helped you connect those dots.
So velocity, I think what it means to them is that you're shipping something continuously, and that what you ship has some impact on the user base, right?
Yeah,
But
pretty
then
ship
but
faster,
it's set ship
more.
faster, but it's also for us for developer side, really, if we do want to ship, we want to do all these things. But it's just the way how we perceive this measurement of the velocity. If it comes from us, if we impose on ourselves that every 2 weeks something needs to go out and that something has to be tied to user improvements, how we tracking business outcomes, if we're able to connect that, then and it's coming from us, from the developer side, then I think you're getting both sides to get what they want. but it's just that maybe some of that is language, some of that is connecting what we do, what engineers do, to what business wants to see as an outcome. And so connecting developer activities to business outcomes is, I think, that I wouldn't say typically misses, but it's one of those things that's sometimes not easy to. We don't speak the same language, but we do, right? Like how do we where do we meet? Like what's the language that we all use? I think if we manage to tie what developers work on to business outcomes, then I think this lines up. Maybe not in the first go, but you start tweaking things. If you're trying to see that users spend longer time on the site, or I don't know what's the measurement, what's the business outcome that you want, and if that's incorporated into the work the developers do, that they also observe that, then I think there's a way to tweak that and have the velocity is part of that.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks we have an improvement that we push out, for instance.
Yeah. I'll ask you one more follow-up and then shut up. What one or two metrics that you see devs get excited about is there these days?
Hard to say. I think like if you depending which framework you're following, there's a bit of them being in the flow that they like to track, right? So if you look at the space or DX, developers being in the flow, they like to track. So it's essentially removing all the reason context shifting, right? Like helping them be having chunks of time when can do their own things. So a lot of these is really yeah, I think it's to some of those that you can actually tangibly improve. Like how fast do we go from code complete to production? There's something that we can actually that are tangible that we can improve that help us make our work more valuable. But also that developer experience metrics are pretty interesting because they take into account their own well-being and the way they contribute and how they know they're making difference.